All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Janet Poutre, and I am the chair of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture. And thank you for joining us for our monthly meeting of the commission. I'd like to ask my colleagues on the commission to keep your video on throughout the meeting to remain as accessible as possible to our audience. And I'm going to ask the same of our participating commission staff. Thank you. I'm going to do a quick roll call to confirm commissioner attendance. And so when I call your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Frank, Commissioner Blevins, Commissioner Bossler is excused, Commissioner Brown, unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner DeZenzo.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Nwana. Commissioner Friedman.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith is excused. She is at her son's graduation from the Naval Academy. Commissioner Schonbrunn.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Whipper.
Yes. Yay. Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Your attendance has been noted. Also joining us today is city staff, including our executive director, Jonathan Gluss, Chief of Civic Art Strategies, Christine Jones, Senior Public Art Manager, Chuck Miller, Senior Arts and Culture Funding Manager, Deanna Agostina, Project Manager, Bel Reza, Arts and Culture Project Manager, Carla Centeno Aguirre, and Civic Art Project Manager, Dr. Laura Bullock, as well as representatives from the Office of Boards and Commission, City Attorney's Office, and the city's IT department. Paragraphs always a challenge. I would like to now read the Commission for Arts and Culture's Statement of Purpose and Vision. Our vision is expanding our world by celebrating creativity in San Diego. Our purpose. The City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture serves in an advisory capacity to the Mayor and City Council on promoting, encouraging, and increasing support for the region's artistic and cultural assets, integrating arts and culture into community life, and showcasing San Diego as an international tourist destination. Before we get into today's agenda, I'm going to call on Bel Reza to run down some of the guidelines for today's meeting. Bel?
Thank you, Chair Poutre. Good almost afternoon, commissioners. As you've all hopefully by now noticed, we are conducting this meeting as a Zoom webinar. This is in an effort to provide greater accessibility. Members of the public may now join the meeting as webinar attendees in order to provide virtual comment in real time. Commissioners, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending the meeting as panelists, and the meeting will function for them identically to a typical Zoom meeting. Just a quick refresher, please note the buttons on the control bar, bottom of your Zoom window. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. You'll also see a chat window button. Please keep your chat window open at all times, as you will be using the chat to signal when you'd like to speak. We do recognize that there is a hand raising function. However, we request that you type speak in the chat window for the record, and the chair will acknowledge requests in order. Please refrain from using the meeting chat for anything other than signaling that you'd like to speak in order to comply with Brown Act. Chair Poutre?
See how easy it is to start talking without unmuting yourself? Okay, we will now move on to non-agenda public comment. And the public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form, which is accessible through the Commission's website and also through the agenda, which was published online. Members of the public could also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in advance via the web form, then staff will read those for us. And if there are people who are in attendance in this meeting as webinar attendees, they may also indicate their desire to make a comment, and staff will advise them on how to do that. I will now call on Belle to read any public comment.
Okay, thank you, Chair Boutray, and just noting for the record that Commissioner Blevins has joined by phone. And then nothing was submitted, but to those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand and indicate that you would like to comment. I will enable you to speak and send you a prompt to unmute yourself in order. When I call your name, please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to provide comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. If you're joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and press I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your number. When I call on you, press *6 to unmute yourself. And please raise your hand now if you would like to provide non-agenda public comment. And seeing none, Chair Boutray.
All right, great. Let's move on then to chair's reports. First thing is an action item, which is for our meeting minutes. Is there any public comment on this item?
Nothing was received, but for those members in the public in attendance, please raise your hand now if you'd like to speak. And seeing none, except for Commissioner Blevins is raising his hand.
I believe he's letting us know that he is on the
Here.
Zoom now.
Okay, perfect. So nothing besides that.
All right, very good. Thank you. So first up is the commission meeting minutes. I hope everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from our April 23rd meeting. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? In order to do that, type speak in the bar in the chat window, and I will call on you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Meza?
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Do you have a comment or any change to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, then we will go ahead and vote to accept the minutes as written. As I call your name, please unmute yourself and say yay, nay, or abstain. And remember, you don't have to have attended the meeting to vote on this item. Commissioner Blevins?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun?
Yay.
Thank you. And Commissioner Whipper?
Yay.
Thank you. And my vote is a yay. Thanks, everybody. And congratulations, Fritz, your first vote.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our next action item, adjust the agenda and recommend hybrid model for future meetings. Now, before we start discussion on this item, would somebody like to make a motion on this item by typing speak in the chat box? Somebody like to make a motion so we can start discussion on this item? Type speak in the chat box.
Janet Tyler has put speak in the
Oh,
box.
there it is, finally. Thank you. Tyler, go ahead.
I move the motion.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schonbrun. All right, so before we can begin the discussion, I want to share some insights from staff. So Jonathan, do you want to get going on that?
Sure. Excuse me. So to frame the conversation a bit, as you know, we have We're in the early phases of the conversation about bringing staff back to offices in some kind of a hybrid model. And part of that is also starting to bring back committee and commission and city council meetings. All of this is regulated by Brown Act at the state level, OSHA guidelines from the federal government, and then frankly, capacity among city staff, mostly from the perspective of technology, for us to bring staff, commissions, boards, and city council back in some form. We're going to have to buy a lot of new technology, from cameras in meeting rooms to upgraded laptops, et cetera. So city staff is in the process of doing that right now. At the same time, there's a number of interim Brown Act guidelines that are still in place, I believe 3 to be exact. So we cannot make any changes to the form of meetings until those are waived by the state. We don't know when that is going to happen. We can imagine it will probably be midsummer, but we don't know. So all of this to say, the city is in flux a bit. We hope that staff, boards, commissions, and possibly city council can ultimately be in some kind of hybrid form, but we really don't know right now. Your recommendations are certainly welcome. Cautioning you that at the end of the day, it really is mandated by the state and the city clerk.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Does that help, Janet?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. The other part of this motion is came out of a discussion at our last executive committee meeting, in which we were talking about whether it makes more sense for public comment to come after we've had our presentation and discussion, and before we vote, and rather than have people make public comment on something they haven't heard the whole presentation on. And we think that this will allow for a better conversation with the public, so that they'll understand what they're making comment on, and perhaps even answer a question before they have to ask it. So this is what we would like to propose for the change in the meeting format. So this motion, we are recommending that we stick to using Zoom when we can in the future as things go forward. And we want to recommend that hybrid style of meeting as we go forward. And also that we rearrange the public comment so that we have public comment after whatever presentation and discussion follows from the commissioners. Any discussion right now? Tracy?
Yeah, I always thought it was a little odd that we had public comment before actually discussing the items, because I mean, half of the time I don't even really understand what you guys are asking people to vote on and stuff. So the discussion is really helpful. And since I am a member of the public as well as a commissioner, I think it's valuable to hear the information before being able to speak on it. So I would motion to approve definitely that portion of the action item. And the hybrid model, you know, we're going to do what we can, and we're going to be accessible as possible. And I don't think that there's much that we have to say about that at this point. But the agenda modification for public speaking time is crucial. So thank you.
All right, great. Commissioner Hughes?
Thank you, Chair. I think and I echo Tracy's comments, but I also think that anything we can do to urge the city clerk to keep investigating the option of keeping a hybrid model in place and or at least committees meeting virtually, I think it opens up on an equity level. It is about equity to the public because not everybody has the wherewithal and optionality of joining us for meetings. Every one of our employers, either we are self-employed or we are independent or retired, et cetera, and are able to serve on this body. But not all of our constituents have that same variability to their schedules. So being able to offer meetings virtually means we are being more equitable, we are being more transparent with our community. So anything that the city clerk can do to open this up, I think is to be commended and urged.
Very good. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, then we can go ahead and vote on this motion. I will call your name and you will unmute yourself and respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Blevins.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo.
Yay.
Not surprised. Commissioner Hughes.
Yay.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoenbrunn.
Yay.
Thank you. And Commissioner Whooper.
Yay.
Thanks. And my vote is a yay. All righty. Next up, other reports. First, I would like to welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Fritz Friedman. And you can tell I have worked in food service before because I'm going to ask you to speak just after you grabbed a snack. So naturally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Fritz Friedman, and I've been here in San Diego since 1980. And I am looking forward to working with the commission because I believe in the importance, what I would call the transcendent power of art to improve life, to enlighten, and to hopefully make people understand each other on a cultural basis and understand the basic humanity of each other. And I look forward to working with all of you. I will be very frank and tell you I don't know a lot of the processes involved in this commission, and I look forward to learning about that and also to find out what exactly your agenda points are, what your goals are. And I had a briefing with just now with your vision and mission statements, and working closely with each one of you to make San Diego an even stronger city culturally. And that's about it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Oh, you're on mute.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much. And welcome. We're very happy to have you with us. I also want to thank Keith Opstad, who is in our audience right now, for his contributions to the commission. Keith is somebody I could always count on. Keith to show up and be prepared. All the extra kinds of things like the budget meetings and just all the things that you'd want a commissioner to do. He did them and plus. And I think really most importantly, Keith, I know you can hear me, or at least I hope you can hear me. You bring such a thoughtful and unique point of view to our discussions, always. You know, you're really at the intersection of education as a teacher, an art teacher, and in that cultural desert we call District 5. And most importantly, you yourself are an artist. you yourself are a creative, and that's a point of view we don't always get here. And as I've said before, we do a lot of talking about money here, but you know, Keith, I know I can always talk about art with you, and that is a critical part of this for you. You know, as a teacher, as a parent, as a person who creates art, it really brought a unique point of view, and I am very grateful for your service. And I'm looking forward to the fact that it'll be easier for us to hang out and have some fun together when you're not a commissioner anymore. So thank you very much for that. Is there anybody else that wanted to say hi to Keith and before he goes back to school? Tyler.
Thank you, Chair Poutre, and welcome, Fritz. We're overjoyed to have you joining us. Many thanks to Keith. Keith, you were an inspiration, and I tell you, there are more times than not where you would ask a question or make a salient comment, and I would just be kicking myself because, damn it, he got there in a quicker, smarter, better way than I did. And it was really a joy to have you on this committee and to serve with you. So you will be missed, and we really thank you for your amazing contributions.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks to everybody. Sorry, thank you, Keith, from everybody. And we look forward to seeing you in the future down the road in the arts world. All right. Next up is committee reports. Is there any public comment for this agenda item?
None was received, and I'll go ahead and open up the floor in one moment, but there was one non-agenda public comment. For some reason, it only went to Jonathan's inbox, but I'd like to read that now, if that's okay with you, Chair Poutre.
Certainly.
Okay. So this was submitted by Peter G. Calivas. And let's go. We kindly invite commissioners and staff to the final PKG Dance in-person outdoor show entitled Foundations. Saturday, May 29th at Casa Familiar's new performance space known as Living Rooms in San Isidro. 2 30-minute shows at noon and again at 2 p.m. A free sponsored event with limited outdoor seating, so first come, first served. Address is 112 West Hall Avenue, San Isidro, California, 92173, free lot parking. Guest artists, Junkyard Dance Crew, Grupo de Danza Minerva Tapia, composer, musician Matthew Taylor, with the PKG Dance Project. Foundations features a mashup of some of PKG's favorite works and the only in-person premiere of Deeply Rooted. I am dissembling my dance company after this Saturday's shows. I am shifting into altogether different community-centered programming in the fall, which I have concluded designing with plans to engage every city district. It's been great serving San Diego the last 19 years through our creative placemaking via the dance company component. To be deeply rooted in a strong foundation is to have conviction and comfort in your truth. Saturday's show flyer is attached. Peter D. Calivas, founding director, and I will find that flyer and make sure to attach it into the chat. And then I'll open up the floor now for public comment. If any members in attendance would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will allow you to talk. And seeing none, oh, one, Andrew, I'm gonna unmute you.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You'll have 3 minutes.
Oh, wonderful. Good afternoon, commissioners and staff. It's great to see you all, and thank you for making your meetings and everything so accessible here. It's been great over the last year or so to tune in more conveniently and just kind of stay in touch with what's happening. I just wanted to give a quick update on one of our more recent programs. Oh, I apologize. My name is Andrew Waltz. I'm the Director of Programs at NTC Foundation, located at Arts District Liberty Station. And I help lead a lot of the public programming efforts at the Arts District, and just wanted to give a quick update about one of our more significant programs that's happening currently. About 3 years ago, we did launch a new initiative called the NTC Foundation Arts District Collaborative. where we really help streamline and support the process of the arts and culture tenants at the Arts District, creating new and innovative programming. And so we've recently announced our 2021 cohort, and there are 6 new programs. I won't go through them all, but I just wanted to let everybody know about that there are these 6 new programs happening over the course of this, the rest of this year. There are dance performances out on the South Promenade at Arts District, being facilitated by or led by San Diego Dance Theater, Malashok Dance, San Diego Ballet, and some others, as well as student groups. We're doing a new perspective film screening from a New American's point of view, and that's actually happening tomorrow night. And there are several other groups, and I just wanted to let everybody know about that program. It is kind of thriving right now, and we've always appreciated the commission's support over the years. So I hope you can join any of our events, and feel free to reach out to me directly if you have questions about any of those programs. Thank you very much. And I hope that was under 3 minutes.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there anyone else, Belle?
Nope, that was it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, next up is our committee reports, starting with policy and funding. And Commissioner Bossler is unable to attend today, so I'm going to ask Commissioner DeZenzo to give us an update from policy and funding.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chair Poutre, for allowing me the opportunity to present this. It was kind of sprung on me and I was like, oh, okay, sure. But of course, the staff has always made it easy and given me the talking points, so I don't have to remember everything. Okay, so let's see. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm actually very ecstatic to present some of the things that the Policy and Funding Committee has discussed over the last couple of weeks. So our first meeting was the regular monthly Policy and Funding Committee meeting, and we had a really robust agenda. The Senior Arts and Culture Manager, Deanna Agostini, sorry, Deanna, gave us a review of the fiscal year 2022 funding program. She highlighted improvements to the program implemented in fiscal year 22, including refinements to the application guidelines, cultivation of new applicants, and continued refinements to the panel process. She also provided a lot of good data to show the overall outcomes. Some of the key takeaways for that included a significant increase in technical assistance and outreach, totaling 11 workshops, 44 hours of one-on-one consultation, and strengthened partnerships with council members and community partners, especially in geographic areas of concern. Additionally, there was good success in increasing the level of shared professional expertise among panel members, while retaining ample representation from San Diego and overall diversity by gender and ethnicity. The panelists demonstrated a clear, intentional eye towards diversity, equity, and inclusion during this year's review process. All of these efforts resulted in 27 new organizations applying for funding. Staff also provided a high-level overview of areas of focus for the fiscal year 2023 funding cycle. At that meeting, it was decided that Policy and Funding would hold a special meeting later in the month to present more detailed recommendations and to allow for public input. The special meeting was held this past Wednesday, May 26th, after work hours to encourage greater participation for the public. We had almost 50 participants from the public for a very well attended and informative meeting. During the first part of the meeting, city staff presented the administrative changes they intend to implement to our funding programs in fiscal year 23, and beyond which aim at removing barriers for our applicants and make the process more accessible. These recommendations included some key changes like redefining the relationship between the city and funding recipients with a shift from contract for services to financial assistance. This shift allows for some tangible changes for example, the elimination of all insurance requirements for OSP and CCSD applicants. This change has been officially approved by the city and will be effective starting with fiscal year 2022 contracts. The elimination of the time-consuming data arts requirement in favor of a still comprehensive but more user-friendly data collection methodology, and expansion of technical assistance opportunities and continuation of new applicants' cultivation efforts. Okay, and then city staff also touched upon other changes that would require some policy changes. They will provide more details about them during the June 11th policy and funding meeting. City staff also shared some long-term goals that will more than likely be implemented in fiscal year 24 and beyond. These include the addition of new program categories for individual artists for targeted initiatives without hindering our core funding programs, so the OSP or the CCSD. So individual artists funding categories and for targeted initiatives. A new grant management system and a thorough review of the awards allocation model. The second part of the meeting allowed for extended public comments, and we received positive feedback and insightful comments from both commissioners and the public. Final recommendations for proposed changes to the fiscal year 2023 funding program will be voted on at the June 11th policy and funding meeting, and later that month by the full commission. I think that's it. Thank you. That's a lot. Thank you very much.
You're right. It is a lot. It was, the meeting was chock full of great news. So lots to share there. And if you are interested in how we are responding to lots of feedback from our community, then I definitely suggest you sit in on another policy and funding meeting, because it's really great. It's all good news. All right, thank you, Commissioner DeCenzo, sorry, for doing that. Now we're going to move to the Public Art Committee. And before we begin, we have to do a conflict of interest disclosures. And that's because the recommendation affects contracts with Pacific Beach Town Council and artist Rob Tobin. So please assess if you have any conflicts to disclose. And when I call your name, unmute yourself and say no conflicts if you have no conflicts, or if you do have a conflict, please recuse yourself from the discussion and voting on the action item. Okay, so Commissioner Blevins, have you any conflicts to disclose?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
I don't believe there is a conflict, but I am a current board member of the Horton Plaza Theaters Foundation. So I'm not sure if that's a conflict or not.
No, this only has to do with Pacific Beach Town Council and the artist Rob Tobin.
Oh, for that, right. No conflict, no conflict.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Meza?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman?
No conflict.
Thanks. Commissioner Schoenbrunn?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Whooper?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask Commissioner Meza to share his committee report to provide an overview of the proposal and the staff recommendation. Ben, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Poutre. We have 3 action items from May's Public Art Committee meeting. The first action is the artwork acquisition proposal, a donation of artwork by Rob Tobin from the Pacific Beach Town Council. recommend that the executive director of the Commission of Arts and Culture accept the proposed donation of an artwork for inclusion into the Civic Art Collection and for installation on the north and south facades of the Pacific Beach Recreation Center building at 1405 Diamond Street in Pacific Beach upon the fulfillment of 8 conditions. At this moment, I'd like to call on Chuck Miller to give us an overview of the proposed donation and the conditions. Chuck?
Thank you, Commissioner Meza, and good afternoon, commissioners. To give an overview, commission staff received a donation application from the Pacific Beach Town Council. The donor is proposing a gift to the city of San Diego that includes 2 mosaic murals by Rob Tobin to be sited on the north and south facades of the Pacific Beach Recreation Center building at 1405 Diamond Street in Pacific Beach. Carla, could we go to the next slide, please? And next slide, there we go. Commission staff evaluated the application utilizing the artwork accession criteria and site selection criteria contained in the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture Department Instruction Collection Management Policy for the Civic Art Collection. And the primary points of the commission staff's analysis include regarding artwork criteria and starting with public safety. If the mosaic murals are installed properly on the recreation center facades, it is unlikely to pose hazards or threats to public safety or public health, and/or is unlikely to pose a potential liability for the city in any other way. The mosaic elements will be fabricated off-site and mechanically fastened to the facade in a manner allowing for deinstallation if necessary. The donor and the artist may be required to submit construction plans and drawings to the Development Services Department for review and approval. Regarding cost, if the donation is accepted, the donor will be responsible for the costs of initial transportation and installation of the artwork. And the donor has indicated that they are willing to assist the city with ordinary and extraordinary maintenance of the artwork. Regarding the availability of resources, commission staff is available to provide administrative services to the donor in order to execute a deed of gift and/or agreement. However, resources for funding future artwork transportation, installation, and conservation are limited. So next slide, please, Carla. And so this is a conceptual render, or I'm sorry, this is the current status of the north facade of the Pacific Beach Rec Center. Next slide, please. And this is a compositional and conceptual rendering of the proposed mural. Next slide, please. And so I'm showing this slide to give you a sense of what the mural will be composed of. So the background will be painted and all of the graphic elements will be ceramic and glass mosaic. And so in this case, the flower petals, the lower part toward the ground and the flower stems will all be glass and ceramic mosaic, and the flower petals themselves will be surfboards that have a glass and ceramic mosaic applique applied to them. So with respect to relevance for the collecting mission, the mosaic murals demonstrate an acceptable level of creativity of the artist, thus providing an aesthetic and cultural experience for San Diego's residents and visitors. The artist lives and works in San Diego County. Due to the placement of the mosaic murals and their relatively large size, the artwork may serve to balance urbanization and development with humanizing elements. Regarding the scope of the collection, the artworks fall within the scope of the collection in object type as well as chronological and geographical origin, and the artist is not currently represented in the Civic Art Collection. Regarding excellence, the artwork exemplifies a satisfactory level of aesthetic quality and workmanship. The artist process typically enlists a significant degree of community involvement and collaboration in conceptual content development. And regarding maintenance, upon acceptance, the city will be responsible for determining methods of and overseeing ordinary maintenance and conducting extraordinary maintenance and conservation. The donor has indicated that they are willing to assist the city with the maintenance of the artwork. Regarding the relationship to the site, the artwork is proposed to be sited on the north and south facades of the Pacific Beach Recreation Center building at 1405 Diamond Street in Pacific Beach. The artwork will serve to beautify the recreation center and the surrounding community. The donor has indicated that the donor and the artist have indicated an intention to involve the community in the production of the mosaic murals by, among other means, incorporating donated surfboards as components of the mosaic murals that are iconic of the Pacific Beach community. So next slide, please, Carla. So this is the current state of the south facade of the recreation center. Next slide. And once again, a compositional and conceptual rendering. And as a reminder, the graphic elements will all be mosaic ceramic and glass tile. Next slide, please. So regarding ethical and legal considerations, if the donation of the artwork is approved, it will be formalized as a deed of gift and/or agreement between the donor and the city. The donor has indicated that the artist will provide a royalty-free license to reproduce images of the artwork for non-commercial purposes. The artist will be required to agree to the terms of the city's standard Visual Artists' Rights Act and California Art Preservation Act waivers. Regarding the selection process for the artist was selected by the donor through a criteria of identifying a local artist with experience producing mosaic murals. And regarding community feedback, the donor has provided letters of support from the Beach and Bay YMCA, Beautiful PB, Discover Pacific Beach Business Improvement District, the Mission Bay Cluster Schools Committee, the Pacific Beach Planning Committee, and Council Member Jennifer Campbell. Next slide, please, Carla. So regarding site selection criteria, the city owns the Pacific Beach Recreation Center, which is the recommended siting for the mosaic murals. Regarding security, the donor has indicated that they will form an artwork inspection and maintenance subcommittee and protocol to regularly monitor the artwork for graffiti, vandalism, and maintenance requirements. While the city is patrolled by the San Diego Police Department, theft and vandalism in the form of tagging still occurs from time to time. And regarding relevance to or adherence to relevant plans, the city adheres to existing community plans and land use plans, such as the city's general plan. So next slide, please. So on at the May 7th Public Art Committee meeting, the Public Art Committee voted 6 yay, 0 nay, and 0 abstaining to recommend to the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture that the executive director of the commission accept the proposed donation of an artwork for inclusion into the Civic Art Collection and for installation on the north and south facades of the Pacific Beach Recreation Center building at 1405 Diamond Street in Pacific Beach upon the fulfillment of 8 conditions. And those conditions are that all other departments that are stakeholders, i.e. Parks and Recreation, Development Services, et cetera, indicate support and approvals for the installation and exhibition of the artwork on the north and south facades of the Pacific Beach Recreation Center. Number 2, that the donor and artist respectively agree to donate the artwork as an unrestricted gift to the city. Number 3, the Pacific Beach Town Council and Rob Tobin agree to modify transportation and installation plans if requested by the city to address any safety, liability, environmental, and accessibility issues. Number 4, Rob Tobin supplies the city with a maintenance and instruction manual in a format to be determined by commission staff. Number 5, the Pacific Beach Town Council agrees to conduct and fund ordinary artwork maintenance if required by the city for the period during which the artwork is exhibited on the Pacific Beach Recreation Center at 1405 Diamond Street in Pacific Beach. Number 6, the Pacific Beach Town Council agrees to fund extraordinary artwork maintenance if required by the city for the period during which the artwork is an object in the Civic Art Collection. Number 7, the artist and copyright holder agrees to grant the city a non-exclusive, irrevocable, and royalty-free license to reproduce the artwork for all standard city educational, public relations, tourism, and arts promotional purposes. And number 8, the artist agrees to the city's standard Visual Artists' Rights Act, Visual Artists' Rights Act and California Art Preservation Act waivers. So that concludes the overview of the recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chuck. Before we have some discussion, let's, somebody like to make a motion? Somebody would like to make, thank you, Commissioner Brown.
I'll make the motion
Thank
to
you.
accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner DeSanzo.
I will second that.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion? Okay.
Commissioner Potre. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Commissioner DeSanzo.
Yeah, hi. So I've been attending the Pacific Beach Town Council meetings and talking up the commission as much as I possibly can. And they are extremely excited about this project. And I personally love it. Rob, I think that, you know, the work that you do is phenomenal. The fact that you engage the community is phenomenal. The fact that you are seeking out donations of, you know, used surfboards, which is great. They're not going to end up in a landfill somewhere. I think that the whole project is just organized well, and it's very fun. And I wish that we could do this on all of our rec centers, because all of our rec centers are kind of the same boring utilitarian design that just doesn't really speak a lot of fun and recreation. So if we could channel this throughout the city, that would be wonderful. But that's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Meza.
Yes, I can agree with Tracy. I love the idea of the community involvement, and also the materials used will be very durable, and they can be easily cleaned, and there are different solutions to mitigate graffiti. But I love the artwork, and I'm excited that we can move forward on this.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
I think this is a fantastic project, and to echo what Commissioner DeSenzo said, I wonder if there's a way we can build into our cultural plan a way of using public art, public sphere, the great program that Christine Jones put together about training artists in how to engage with the city on creating public art. If we could, dedicate in our cultural plan a plan to beautify every one of the rec centers using that program, where we're cultivating artists and then finding funding from the federal government, which is going to have a $6 trillion budget next year, and then really beautify our spaces. So this is fantastic. And if we can build on this going forward, it'd be extremely exciting.
All right, thank you for your comment. Anybody else? All right, seeing no further comments, then let's go ahead and vote on this. I am going to call your name and you'll respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain.
Oh. Excuse me, Janet, I believe you have one more comment.
Yes, I'm trying to get it into the, I just have a comment, and it probably isn't possible and has nothing to, is not adaptable to this project. But I look at the building and how dreary it is, and I see this wonderful new piece of art that's going to come up and be like a magnet for the community. And I'm wondering if there's any way that they can integrate that color to maybe just the railing of the building, or bring it to where the building and the artwork are more, I guess, contiguous or whatever. Do you ever do that? I was looking at that white building, and I see so many buildings that are just have a thing on it. If there can be some budget, I don't know if it's through the city, just to bring it all in one piece, so the whole building and the art project sings the same song, so to speak.
It's a good point. Thank you, Commissioner Schoenbrunn.
I can speak to that really quickly. The city is going to be painting the entire rec center, but to my understanding, is anticipating painting the entire rec center and is coordinating with the Pacific Beach Town Council in terms of the base colors for the mural. So
Great.
Thank you so much. That's great.
Great, problem solved. All right. Let's move on and go ahead and vote on this. I will call your name. You will unmute yourself and you will say yay, nay, or abstain. All right. Commissioner Blevins.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeZenzo.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoenbrunn.
Yay.
Thank you. And Commissioner Whooper.
Yay.
Thank you. My vote's a yay as well. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, on to the next action item. This one, we have to do the conflict of interest again, and this affects contracts with the Mingei International Museum. So please assess whether you have any conflict to disclose in regard to the Mingei. And when I call on you, unmute yourself and either state no conflicts or recuse yourself from discussion and voting on this item. So Commissioner Blevins.
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
No conflict, even though I work right next door to Mingei.
Thank you. Commissioner DeZenzo.
None.
Commissioner Hughes.
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza.
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman.
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoenbrunn.
No conflict.
And Commissioner Whooper.
No conflict.
All right, I have no conflict myself. All right, Commissioner Meza, I'm going to hand it back to you to share your committee report on this item.
Thank you, Chair Petray. This is regarding the artwork loan proposal from Mingei International Museum for the piece titled Nikki Gator. Recommend that the Executive Director of the City of San Diego Commission of Arts and Culture approve the incoming loan of artwork by Nikki this St. Fall for exhibition outside the Mingei International Museum in the Plaza de Panama in Balboa Park. At this time, I would like to call on Laura to give an overview of the loan proposal and recommendation. Laura?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Meza. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So the city has received an application for an incoming loan of artwork from the Mingei International Museum. And city staff has evaluated the application utilizing the artwork criteria contained in the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture Department Instruction Collection Management Policy for the Civic Art Collection. And the results of the commission staff's analysis include public safety, if the sculpture is installed properly within the proposed location in Balboa Park's Plaza de Panama, just outside of the entrance of the Mingei International Museum, it is unlikely to pose hazards or threats to public safety or public health, and is unlikely to pose a potential liability for the city in any other way. So in terms of cost, the lender will be solely responsible for funding this loan of artwork. This includes, but is not limited to, costs for site preparation, handling, transportation, installation, signage, maintenance and conservation, deinstallation, and site restoration. So in terms of relevance, this incoming loan of artwork outside of the Mingei in the Plaza de Panama, and I'll show you a slide in a few slides, would provide a meaningful aesthetic and cultural experience for San Diego's residents and visitors, particularly children and their parents and caregivers. The incoming loan of Nikki Gator pays homage to a relationship that artist Nikki DeSunfall, who lived and worked in San Diego for several years, had with the Mingei International Museum's founding director, with whom DeSunfall worked closely to realize this artwork as a gift for the children of San Diego. The sculpture would likely stimulate discussion and the exchange of ideas about art. Due to its relatively large size, the artwork would serve to balance urbanization and development with humanizing elements. And while the sculpture will not specifically reflect the heritage, character, and diversity of San Diego, it will be viewed by a cross-cultural section of the public. And the sculpture demonstrates an acceptable level, great level of creativity and innovation. And so that kind of lends itself to its significance. So the large mosaic sculpture is exemplary of the style that Nikki DeSunfall was known for. So DeSunfall spent her final 8 years living and working in La Jolla. During this time, she became good friends with Martha Longenecker, who was the founding director of the Mingei International Museum. So Nikki Gator was actually installed from 2001 to 2018 in front of the museum, and then was removed from the site due to the museum undergoing a major renovation. So the installation will present a unique opportunity for viewers of all ages to engage with DeSunfall's sculpture in San Diego up close, right outside of the Mingei. So it is in excellent condition. And just to reiterate, the lender will be responsible for maintenance and conservation of the sculpture and any accessories such as pad and plaque for the duration of the loan period. The lenders indicated that during the display, the staff of the Mingei International Museum will monitor the sculpture in terms of security. And this incoming loan, if it is authorized, will be formalized in a loan of artwork agreement between the Mingei and the city. So the applicant has communicated with and garnered support from their peer institutions in Balboa Park for their application. And next slide, please. Here's just another view. This is the side view of Nikki Gator. And this is its current location in Liberty Station. Next slide, please. And in this slide, we see its future return to the Plaza de Panama. So in this map, you can see at the very top, it says Mingei Museum. And then on the southern edge of the image, it says Plaza de Panama, just to kind of orient you. So that you can see Nikki Gator kind of nestled into a little corner there, and its head is facing south, its tail is facing north, and north is where the entrance to the museum is. So it's right there. So if people are waiting, to get into the museum or some time outside, children can play right there. And sorry, 1 second. So in terms of context, the artwork is to be sited on a poured-in-place rubber pad in the Plaza de Panama outside of the Mingei. So this rubber pad has been vetted thoroughly in terms of safety, and in case a child were to crawl on it and fall, those considerations were taken into account. I think that's important to mention. And so evaluation criteria the commission will use to decide whether to recommend to the city's executive director to authorize the incoming loan of artwork may include all or some of those given in the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture's Department Instruction, which I just read some highlights from above. And so on May 7th, 2021, the proposed incoming loan of artwork was presented to the Public Art Committee, or PAC. And at the meeting, PAC voted 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining to recommend to the commission that the executive director of the commission approve the incoming loan of artwork by Nikki DeSunfall for exhibition outside of the Mingei International Museum in the Plaza de Panama. So next slide, please. So here we are. This is the recommendation slide. And Commissioner Meza, would you like to resume?
We recommend that the executive director of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture approve the incoming loan of artwork by Nikki de St. Fall for exhibition outside the Mingay International Museum in the Plaza de Panama in Balboa Park.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve? Commissioner, I can't tell if that's a new one. Commissioner Meza?
I so moved.
Okay, great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Blevins. All right. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, then I will we'll take a vote. I'll call your name and you'll respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Blevins?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeZenzo?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun?
Yay.
Thank you. And Commissioner Whooper?
Yay, emphatically.
Thank you. And my vote is also a yay. All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, for our final action item today, action-packed meeting.
Yes.
This one affects contracts with artist Susan Logorici. So please assess whether you have any conflicts to disclose, and I will call on you and you will unmute yourself and say no conflicts, or you will recuse yourself. So Commissioner Blevins?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Brown, do you have any conflicts to disclose?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman?
No conflict.
Thanks. Commissioner Schonbrun?
No conflicts.
Thanks. Commissioner Whooper?
No conflicts.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Meza, I'm going to hand it back to you to share your committee report and provide an overview.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Petray. This is regarding the final artwork proposal by Susan Logorici, the Fairmont Avenue Fire Station. We recommend that the executive director of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture accept the final artwork proposal by Susan Logorici in fulfillment of the City of San Diego's collecting mission, collection scope, and accession criteria. I'd like to call on Laura to give an overview of the proposal and recommendation. Laura?
Thank you, Commissioner Meza. So artist Susan Logorici was commissioned to design, fabricate, and transport permanent site-specific artwork for Fairmount Avenue Fire Station and to consult during installation of artwork at the site by the city. The Fairmont Avenue Fire Station project involves the design and construction of a new fire station straddling the City Heights and Ridgeview neighborhoods in southeastern San Diego. RRM Design Group is the lead designer for the fire station to be located at the intersection of 47th and Fairmount Avenue. Next slide, please. Oh, I apologize. So before I show you a map of the area, I just wanted to remind you guys of the artwork development process. So we're in a final stage, but so it starts with the city procuring an artist. The artist gathers research and engages the public and then creates a preliminary idea. The artist creates an artwork proposal after presenting their preliminary idea to the Public Art Committee. And there is an opportunity for public engagement. And the artist will eventually create a final design. And we are looking at the final design proposal today. And the city will approve the final design, which will give the artist license to begin fabrication on the artwork, which is really exciting. So next slide, please. So here is the map of where the new Fairmount Avenue Fire Station will be located. And so you see 47th Street and Fairmount Avenue, just kind of nestled in that area right there. Next slide, please. And then here's just a zoomed out map so you can kind of orient the fire station within the neighboring neighborhoods and freeways. You see the 805 to the west and then 94 to the south. You can see the Ridgeview, Webster. It's right on that edge, and Choyas Creek up north. Next slide, please. Great. So, okay. So let's move on. So in terms of concept, the artwork proposal for the fire station is 3 two-dimensional pieces or 3 two-dimensional artworks made with porcelain enamel on a steel substrate. All 3 artworks will be created from original paintings that the artist designs in her studio. And then eventually those renderings will be framed and displayed within the fire station. One of the porcelain enamel pieces will be installed on the facade of 47th Street side of the building. The second will be in the entryway facing the parking lot, perpendicular to the front door. And the third will be installed on the Fairmount Avenue side of the building, which is what we are looking at in this image. So the image that we're seeing right now is the artist's first iteration, her first stab at this proposal. And you see various houses from the neighborhood highlighted in a vertical orientation on the wall. So in this piece, as well as the other 2, the unifying concept is it involves the ladder, which is the symbol for the fire station and the fire service, and then elements of the community, natural or built environment elements. And the idea is to show how these 2, the fire service as well as the community, are intertwined. And so you actually see, next slide, please. So you can actually see the shape of a ladder and the negative space surrounding these images. So again, this is one of the first renderings, and in early November 2020, Susan presented to the Public Art Committee, and some of the feedback that she got was that this design maybe didn't take into account the water conservation concerns in San Diego. So next slide, please. So she adjusted her color palette in response to that feedback and using more kind of browns and yellow tones, as well as just like a little bit of green in the background at the top. So this piece depicts houses from the surrounding area, Ridgeview, City Heights, Azalea, Hollywood Park, and Broadway Heights neighborhoods specifically from an aerial perspective. And each rectangle contains a house surrounded by a color depicting its landscaping. So next slide, please. And so this is just a view of it as it will look from the street. Next slide, please. So this is the 47th Street design. This was, again, her first design. So it depicted the Choyas Creek, which is a nearby natural resource that the community is very, protective of and enjoys. Next slide, please. Here's just a close-up of that initial design. Next slide, please. And then this was her proposed design for the entryway piece. initially, the first design. So you'll see it also hints at the creek at the northernmost border of the image. And then you see some houses within the landscape on the southernmost edge, the bottom half of the artwork. So when Susan met with the Public Art Committee in February 2021, some of the feedback that she got, oh, sorry, that was that first slide. So when she presented at the community engagement event, the Meet the Artist event, and then later the Artist Open House, she got some comments that people thought that these two images, this Entryway piece and the 47th Avenue Street piece, looked very similar, and that maybe she could incorporate more color. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. Great, so this is her final design for the front of the fire station. So instead of the creek alone, she's incorporated some houses. Next slide, please. Here's a close-up. Yeah, so you can see it's more colorful. She added more color and then kept that kind of the notion of the creek with the neighborhood, but instead of having it at the entryway, moved it to the 47th Street side. And next slide, please. And for the entryway, she designed an entirely new artwork based on the feedback that she received from the community and committees. So next slide, we can see a close-up. So this piece is unique or different from the others in that the ladder motif is embedded within the image itself. And another thing that this artwork captures that the other two and the previous designs didn't is that she has incorporated some high density housing, which is also in the neighborhood and was missing before. So with that, it's worth mentioning in terms of maintenance, this porcelain enamel with steel substrate is a very hardy material. It has been used on signage and subway stations and, you know, other atmospheres where it's subjected to the elements of the weather. So she has done a lot of research on this. This installation is guaranteed to last 25 years, but likely more. And on November 6, 2021, Susan presented her preliminary artwork idea to the Public Art Committee for feedback. PAC then again provided feedback on the schematic work proposal on February 5th, 2021. And then lastly, most recently on May 7th, the artist's final artwork proposal was presented to PAC. And at the meeting, PAC voted 6 for, 0 against, and 0 abstaining to recommend to the commission that the executive director accept the final artwork proposal by the artist in fulfillment of the city's collecting mission, collecting scope, and accession criteria. So this project is funded by the city as set forth in City of San Diego Council Policy 900-11, inclusion of public art and selected capital improvements program projects. So after the project completion, which is anticipated in the spring of 2024, so a ways out, the city will accession the artwork into the Civic Art Collection and be responsible for its stewardship. So next slide, please. So I can read this. The motion on the table is to recommend that the executive director of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture accept the final artwork proposal by Susan Lugarezzi in fulfillment of the City of San Diego's collecting mission, collection scope, and accession criteria as established in Section 5, collecting mission, Section 6, scope of the collection, and Selection 8.2, accession criteria of the Commission for Arts and Culture, Department Instruction 1, collection management policy for the Civic Art Collection. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve? Commissioner DeCenzo?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Schonbrun? Unmute yourself. Doreen, unmute yourself.
Sorry. No, I was just going to, I just wanted to continue the discussion. You already called on two other people to do that, so we're finished with that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. So if there is no further discussion, I will go ahead and call on you, and you will unmute yourself and vote yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Blevins?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Whipper?
Yay.
Thanks. And my vote is yay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for moving through that. And thank you, Commissioner Meza, for your action items and reports. All right, now moving to the Advocacy and Outreach Committee. So Commissioner Hughes, would you like to share a committee report?
Thank you very much, Chair. We actually did not have a meeting this month. We gave up that slot in favor of a policy and funding meeting instead on the 7th. But I can update you all on efforts we've been making on the FY22 budget, having met with all City Council members and now speaking to City Council during their commentary on the budget. So that's where our efforts are right now, and trying to drum up more support for both Penny for the Arts for the future, but emergency funding for fiscal year 22, 23 and beyond.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Our Commissioner Engagement Ad Hoc Committee, we will not have a report today. Commissioner Nwana is unable to attend, so we'll move on to our next item. Before we begin, is there any public comment for this agenda item?
To those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand and indicate that you'd like to comment. Seeing none, Chair Poutre.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now I'd like to welcome Kent Lee. He is the Executive Director of the Pacific Arts Movement and the co-chair of the San Diego API Coalition. Thanks for coming today, Kent. Appreciate that. We would like to hear what you have for us on your work in the AAPI community right now, in the arts community. Hi, welcome, Kent.
Hello.
We can all see you and hear you.
Thank you, Chair Poutre, and thanks for having me today. I can actually pop up some slides if that would help, just to give a little bit of an introduction. Would that be okay?
So go ahead, Kent.
Okay. Okay, everyone can see the slide. So again, just as a quick introduction, again, my name is Kent Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Pacific Arts Movement, also co-chair the San Diego Asian Pacific Islander Coalition. And we'll talk just a little bit about both of these today, especially as the Executive Director of an arts organization that is supported by the Commission. Wanted to give you some background information about Pacific Arts Movement. Our mission is that we present Asian, Asian American, and Pacific Islander media arts for San Diego residents and visitors. Perhaps the most important part is that we do so to inspire, entertain, and support a more compassionate society. I think most people know us for the San Diego Asian Film Festival, which is a core part of our work. But I think I emphasize this mission in particular because you'll notice that film and film festivals is not necessarily the core of our mission. Our mission truly is to think about how we can lead towards a more compassionate society. Some of the programs that we do include our festivals. We do a main festival in the fall, a smaller sort of bite-sized spring showcase that just concluded at the start of AAPI Heritage Month. We do Real Voices educational screenings and programs throughout the year. And I just have some photos that sort of share how our work has touched across all of San Diego, bringing artists, filmmakers, speakers, panelists from all over the world. We've done work with local campuses, with a number of celebrities, many of which, when this festival started, representation was still very scarce, even if it has changed slightly in years since, as well as honoring filmmakers for their work. Part of our work in recent years has really focused also on the fact that storytelling is not done simply through media and through film, but also through other art forms. For example, from a culinary standpoint, San Diego in particular celebrates a number of chefs and restaurateurs from all around the world, and we've had an opportunity to share in that with our audiences as well. Again, Real Voices is our youth educational program, where we bring students from across San Diego County. We've actually had students from Tijuana as well to learn the art of documentary filmmaking. And it's less about just how you shoot and edit film, but really teaching students about how you tell stories that can make an impactful difference on their communities, and really drawing upon their own lives as well. So that's just a little bit of a background on what we've done for Real Voices. Maybe what I will share as a transition then is that last year, I think many of you know that with the arrival of COVID-19, there were some pretty significant impacts upon the Asian American community in particular, relating to hate, racism, and xenophobia that have been on the rise since last year. And just to share a little bit of background about that, I mean, it's been about 17 months now since the start of the pandemic. But I share some of this background because I think it's important for people to reflect on. We've seen a lot in media now, but when you look at this photo, which is back from February of 2020, what you'll notice is that this is before stay-at-home orders, mask mandates, working from home. And already at that time frame, there were significant concerns about how the spread of COVID-19 was also resulting in a spread of racism and discrimination, in particular against Asian American communities. It was something that was spoken upon here. County Board Supervisor Fletcher, Councilmember Chris Kate, other API community members gathered back in last February to express some concern. And I think we reflect often back to how language and the choice of rhetoric has had a significant impact on how people perceive the virus. In response to that, there has been a national database that has formed called Stop API Hate to try to track the impact and the number of incidents that have been taking place around the country against Asian American Pacific Islander communities. What we've seen since that point is that there have been over 6,600 incidents reported between last March and this March. You've seen in media reports that the elderly, the young are certainly not exempt. Unfortunately, this year, especially, we've seen a spate of horrific attacks amongst elderly Asian Americans. And that has been a significant concern. With the shooting that took place, the shootings that took place in Atlanta, Georgia, we saw also this tendency that women are targeted almost twice as likely than men in many of these attacks. And that same data point has been reflected in what we've seen here in San Diego. These are just some of the national incidents that we've seen since just the beginning of this year. And I think we share this because, there were a number of celebrities that ended up speaking out on this at the early part of the year and brought attention to this to the media. But we should all acknowledge that, it doesn't take celebrities offering cash rewards or, everyone marching in streets to bring attention to this as an issue, because as I've already shared with you earlier, this was something that we were all concerned about since the beginning of the pandemic. When you look at what's happening in San Diego, at the start of this year, we had gotten data from the national database showing 42 reports of incidents in San Diego County. We've gotten the latest update just this month showing that that number has now jumped to over 100 reported incidents when you go from the beginning of the pandemic to this March. And this is just within San Diego alone. And I think as Mayor Gloria shared recently in a panel that we both were serving on, we know that there's significant underreporting that's still taking place. Some of the impacts in San Diego included a decline in business patronage, different types of harassment. And as a result, what you see now is this San Diego API coalition that has formed. And so I'm going to stop screen sharing just so I can talk about it a little bit more. So aside from my role in Pacific Arts Movement, we also represent and help to fiscally sponsor at this point the San Diego API Coalition. What it is not its own organization. It is a platform that brings together more than 30 organizations across San Diego County that represent the API community in the hopes of bringing greater advocacy and awareness to issues that are addressing that community. And it's more than just thinking about it from an anti-hate standpoint. It's thinking about the work we have to do to foster greater collaboration and to also think about the solidarity that we need to consider with other communities that are impacted by hate, not just during the pandemic, but really as a part of our history in the United States. For us at Pacific Arts Movement, this has been a significant focus. I think it's one example of how an organization like ours, which to be frank, is media arts focused, right? It is not necessarily a community organizer day to day, but during the pandemic, we needed to find ways to shift and think about what our role was from a community standpoint. Luckily, because of the work that we have done building significant bridges in different communities through our festival, that's what allowed us to bring 70 plus organizations together last year to respond with our first, joint statement. It's what has allowed us to spark some of the work behind creating this coalition and to look to establish something that will, last beyond just this single crisis. The other element of what PecArts has done in the last year that I'd just like to share briefly is that we ended up partnering with the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition as well last year, and we ended up serving again as the fiscal agent to help distribute over $120,000 in BIPOC artist relief grants to the community. We did so in part because we understood that we could be extremely flexible in the way our organization operates to get that funding out to artists as quickly as possible. Even when they weren't in a position maybe with a traditional bank account or some of the other barriers that might often prevent people from getting funding. And I think that's why hearing what the Arts and Culture Commission and the staff is doing at the moment to address issues around equity and to think about what we can do as a city to help provide greater opportunity for those who might not typically and traditionally have support, I think is critical. Even discussions around removing significant barriers like around insurance, I think is a hugely lauded step, because you've all seen the same reports that when it comes to arts and culture funding, there tends to be a pretty significant discrepancy when you look at geographical areas of representation. When you look at even the Asian American Pacific Islander community, we know that there are only a small handful number of organizations like Pacific Arts Movement that receive funding from the city. And that is a challenge. I think if this last year has taught us anything during the pandemic, it is that arts and culture is not just entertainment. And I know that's not a difficult pitch to all of you since you live this and breathe this, but I think too often we see arts and culture the first to be on the chopping block because people think of it as this extracurricular activity. But I will tell you that for small cultural organizations like us, and we are maybe actually on the larger side when it comes to cultural institutions, that support from the city is critical. I mean, it's what allows us to tell stories that impact the community. And when we talk about it not just being entertainment, it's because we understand that in a time like this with increased hate and racism, the only way we believe that sometimes people will develop a better sense of empathy, compassion, and understanding is to sort of live and breathe the stories that they see from other people that might be different. I think, Fritz, I think that's why in your introduction, I very much resonated with what you were bringing to the table, because I think that's exactly it. I think in order for us to foster a city of greater compassion, we need to show people the ability to live and breathe within the stories of others. So that's maybe just a quick briefing of who we are as an organization, the work that we've done as a part of the San Diego API Coalition. And I'm happy to answer any questions or give any further insight when it comes to our work, both on the artistic front, but also on the anti-Asian hate front as well.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you very much. Lots of good information there. I want to tell you I was really intrigued and happy about the Real Voices program. That I just think that's so great. Storytelling is fundamental to the human experience, and the more different ways that we tell our stories to each other, the greater the opportunities there are for connection across what some people think of as lines that don't need to be there. I also want to thank you for acting as a fiscal agent, because that is something we want to really dig into more deeply throughout the city. So thank you for acting as a fiscal agent. That's something very important to our community. Does anybody have any questions for Kent?
Hi, Fritz. I don't have a question. I just want for full disclosure a statement that I fully support what Kent and his organization has done. I have been a member on advisors for PAC Arts since its inception, about what, 18 years ago or something. And what your point about when people dismiss the importance of art, and especially visual art, one just has to realize the visceral response people have when they see the swastika and how those symbols were used consistently throughout the German Reich to represent the really negative values of that particular regime. And they do that constantly. The church does it, the Catholic, all religions do it. Symbol and art storytelling, as in the Bible. But it is amusing to me that is usually dismissed as a frivolous sort of endeavor until people realize what the impact of the media has in communities. And the media is art. So I totally support Kent, and I totally support PAC Arts and everything that they do.
Thanks, Commissioner Friedman. Commissioner DeCenzo.
I can't. Thank you very much for everything that you are doing for the community. I was curious, the grant program that you teamed up with SDRAC on, how successful was that for BIPOC artists? I know that it was primarily focused on BIPOC artists, but did you also manage to distribute money to the non-BIPOC community, or was that just strictly for them? And then how successful was it? Were you able to distribute all of the funding?
Yeah, so maybe and I don't want to speak for SDRAC because we only served as a particular type of partner on their behalf. But I do understand that SDRAC established 3 rounds of challenge funding at that time to think about nonprofit relief. The first round of what they offered was grant funding, I think up to $10,000 for organizations sub $1.5 million from a budget standpoint. I believe there was definitely conversation with this commission in particular because the commission helped put the word out about it at that time as well to encourage organizations to apply. And if I recall correctly from SDRAC, that they were actually surprised that they did not get as many applicants for that first round as they had expected. I think that's in part why in that second round, there was sort of this discussion about how when we look at gaps in funding, there is often this organizational funding available, especially for larger sized organizations that, meet the requirements, have the capacity and the years of, capacity that they can show. But individual artist funding tends to be lacking. So I think at that time, especially following what we were seeing last summer in terms of, conversations around racial reckoning, that's what drove their focus to look at individual artist funding. The fund was initially set based on a number of donations from individuals. It was matched in part with the San Diego Foundation and other partners. I think the initial anticipation was that they were looking at something like $60,000 to $80,000 in funding. But between that, some social media campaigns and a GoFundMe, that's what brought the total funding up to about $120,000. And there were certainly plenty more candidates that had applied for that funding than just the 124 that ultimately received it. And I think we did not participate in the actual scoring and sort of judging on that. They had assembled a panel of local artists and art administrators who helped to do that. So I can't speak to, demographically who the recipients represented. Jonathan, I don't know if you might have some more familiarity with.
I'm happy. Yeah, thank you, Kent. I'm happy to weigh in quickly and just to close the loop here. Excuse me. This is the same fund that was originally launched through the leadership of then Mayor Faulkner. That this staff originally reached out to the San Diego Foundation and then SD-RAC to create this committee. Excuse me. Kent is referring to round 2, which went to individual artists. We've now done a 3rd round that went to small and mid-size arts organizations, primarily mid-size. As far as demographics, I can't say off the top of my head, but we are happy to send the demographic breakdown. There was quite an intentional, firstly, it was countywide, so it wasn't specific to the city. And that was because it was private funding. And there was a very intentional outreach element to this, to a great extent led by Leanne Kim, who many of you know on this call, to make sure that we were reaching into less served parts of San Diego, but also San Diego County. So that was a vague way of saying we can get demographic background to you all.
Nice work, Jonathan. Commissioner Schoenbrunn. Unmute yourself, Doreen.
I just want to commend Kent for all the important work you're doing for the Asian community. It is so important, and I look forward to supporting you in all the ways that I can. I'm involved with VAPA, which is Visual and Performing Arts for San Diego Unified School District, and I'm actually president of VAPA Foundation. And we've done some wonderful work, we think, with the Asian community as far as offering some music and some history of the Asian people for all the kids in the Unified School District. You'd be happy to hear we had a whole thing about the history of the ukulele, and during COVID they were able to play virtually and taught by a teacher, and it was really a beautiful thing to see. So just keep going. I'm Jewish. I'm a minority descendant of Holocaust victims. I get it. Okay, done. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Schoenbrunn. Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you very much, Kent, for taking the time today and for speaking for San Diego API Coalition. I had a really interesting conversation with Councilmember Kate when we were talking about the fiscal year 22 budget, and part of that conversation was about the violence against the AAPI community. And we both agreed that one of the things that we need to do is, as a better job of a city, is connecting the disparate elements of San Diego to one another, because you can't hate somebody that you know. You can't hate somebody that you've shared food with, that you have gotten to know their art and their culture. And I think that in related to our overall planning, that a cultural plan that directly addresses these elements of equity, inclusion, and the racial animus that we have seen disturbingly come up over the past 17 months, I think that's going to be really crucial. So I look forward to continued conversations with you and the entire community.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Friedman.
Yeah, I just want to expand a little bit on what Myron had to say. I wanted to thank Kent and what PAC Arts has done in enriching and educating the greater San Diego community, not just the Asian community, because by informing people of the culture, everyone grows, everyone gets to know each other. And I think that is, you don't want to you don't want to preach to the choir. So I think Kent educating the non-Asian community is a very critical component, I believe, of his mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Friedman, for your comment. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, Kent, for coming today, for taking the time to be with us and telling us what's happening in your neck of the woods, so to speak. I hope that we'll continue the conversation and you'll keep us up to date on things that are going on and ways that we can work together with you. Thanks again for your coming today.
Thank you all for what you do as well. And when the time comes, I'll be happy to share about our San Diego Asian Film Festival coming up this fall. So
sounds great. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. All right. Next up is the proposed county arts agency update. And I'm going to ask our executive director, Jonathan Gluss, to give us a heads up on that.
Thank you, Janet. I want to also thank Kent for spending some time with us this morning. He's been a great partner in so many ways over the last year. Regarding the County Arts Agency, the reason why it is on our agenda today is to just brief you on the potential of a county arts agency and how that could align with the work of the City of San Diego through the Commission for Arts and Culture. In particular, a number of you are aware of the fact that we have, for many years, held the state-local partnership contract with the California Arts Council. Every county in the state of California has a state-local partnership agreement, save one up north. Through that annual agreement, we receive a relatively small amount of funding. This year, it will equal to about $45,000. And for that partnership, we administer the Poetry Out Loud project. And we're also obligated to provide some high-level countywide services to the arts and culture field overall. Part of what we do through that is we convene the other municipal arts agencies in the county. There's 5 other municipal arts agencies. And then we periodically convene other service organizations and arts and cultural organizations throughout the state that provide some kind of anchor activities for the larger arts and culture ecosystem in their parts of the county. With the possibility, and there's a strong possibility that there will be a recommendation brought forth to the county supervisors over the coming few weeks for the creation of a county arts agency, that by no means will impact our state-local partnership relationship with the CAC. And in fact, I think this will be an incredibly important step for the county. As far as when I say the county, I mean the county as a community in backfilling that probably 60% of the county geographically does not have a municipal arts agency serving it. It will potentially reduce pressure on our funding pool. And it brings another partner to the table when we are thinking about countywide initiatives, such as the Arts and Economic Impact Study that we conduct countywide every 5 years. So on the staff level, we're very enthusiastic about the potential for having a county arts agency. But in particular today, I'm reporting out on this because I want you all to know formally that will not impact our state-local partnership status. And that's really it, Janet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Commissioner Hughes, is that a new one?
Just a question. It is a new one. Thank you, Chair. Jonathan, question, would a letter of support from this body to the Board of County Supervisors be in order, urging them to move forward with this?
I'm sure that would be welcome. We won't know the status or the timing on this for probably another 10 days. But I can tell you that the cities of Encinitas and Coronado are definitely, their commissions are definitely sending letters of support. And really the message is to let the county know that as a field, we are in support of this and welcome the addition.
Okay, thank you for your question and for your answer, Jonathan. Is there any other question or comment on this particular item? Okay, next up is director's reports. Is there any public comment for this agenda item?
To those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand and indicate that you'd like to comment. Seeing none, Chair Boutre.
Thank you, Belle. So Jonathan, will you go ahead and give us your director's report?
Well, I have good news for everyone. It is noon on Friday before the holiday weekend, so we're going to keep this really short. Christine has just a couple reports, and I have no additional reports in it beyond the county activity. So Christine?
Thanks, Jonathan. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'll make this very brief. So as you all know, the city recently acquired 100 artworks by 89 artists through SD Practice Initiative, which was obviously designed to support local artists during these challenging times and also start to expand and diversify the city's collection. I can't spill the beans yet, but we do anticipate an exciting announcement next week about the display of the artworks acquired this summer. So stay tuned, hopefully next week, for more details on that. Secondly, Children's Park. So earlier this month, the city kicked off this major construction for the park transformation. So this is a park that's located in downtown in the Marina neighborhood, Front and Island. And as many of you may recall, Miki Iwasaki is being commissioned by the city to create a site-specific artwork and actually a sculptural installation in the park. So construction is underway and it will be completed by, I think they're anticipating summer of 2022. And then last but not least, as you all know, Ron Salisbury, San Diego's first poet laureate, has his ongoing Poetry of Resilience project, which, as you know, involves different workshops that are coming out on a monthly basis through September. So his next workshop, which is his third one, will become live next Friday. And the title of that is The Poetic Contract, Titles, the Poetic Line, and Poem Endings. And he'll be partnering with Jim Moreno, who's a local poet. And as part of that, Ron will be interviewing Jim as well. So I encourage you all to check out the workshop and also submit your poems. As you might remember, there's a whole submit your poem and it will be mapped. So we're really starting to see poems from all across the city and actually county coming in. So we encourage you to participate in that as well. And that concludes my reports for today.
Thank you, Christine. I'd also like to just wrap up the staff report. Janet, did we mention that you and Ben will be in San Isidro tomorrow afternoon? Could you do a shout out about that?
Yes, sir. That concludes your report?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. What Jonathan's referring to, we heard earlier from Peter Kalivas that this weekend on Saturday, his company will be performing for the last time as a company. He's transitioning, disassembling the company and moving into some different ways of experiencing the arts. And so we're Jonathan and Ben and I are all going to be attending. It's in San Ysidro. Everyone's invited. There are 2 shows, one at noon and one at 2 p.m. And at the end of, I think, the early show, we will be presenting Peter with a proclamation recognition from the city for all that he's done for the arts and culture in San Diego. And so if you would like to attend, the information, I believe, is in the chat box. Earlier, somebody posted it, the link, and it looks like it's going to be a really interesting show. Every time I've, pardon me, every time I've seen his company perform, I'm always reminded how creative they are. So I hope some of you can make it.
Janet, may I quickly add to that?
Yes.
And it seems really fitting that this performance, this final performance of this company takes place at the border. He is jointly choreographing the production with Minerva Tapia, who's my counterpart in the city of Tijuana and also runs a contemporary dance company. And it will be performed at the still very new performing arts venue at Casa. And if you haven't been there, it's an incredibly beautiful restored church that I had the good opportunity of having a tour with Ben about a year ago. By no means is it possible for commissioners and staff to be at every event, but we felt like this was particularly special because it is really kind of closing a decade of, more than a decade of really good innovative work in San Diego.
Especially Peter has always been such a strong advocate for, I want to say, the little guys, in a sense, the independent companies, the smaller arts groups, and he's been a strong advocate, and I think this recognition is well deserved, and I think he'll be thrilled. Before we move to our commissioner speed round, is there any public comment for this item?
To those members of the audience in attendance, please raise your hand to indicate if you'd like to speak. And seeing none, Chair Boudreaux.
All right, thank you very much. Well, before I open the floor, I want to make sure that I share an upcoming event. The San Diego African American Museum of Art is going to unveil their Say Their Names Memorial Project down at the MLK Promenade downtown. This is going to be, the ribbon cutting is on Saturday, July 10th at 11 a.m. and it's open to the public, it's free. This promenade is sort of across the street next door to the new Children's Museum Park and free to the public. And the memorial is going to feature, I don't even want to say this, 200 photos of Black victims whose lives were lost to racial injustice, police brutality, racism, all the most heinous things in our culture. And the exhibit will be open, accessible daily from July 10th to July 25th. And I really want to encourage everybody to get down there and have a look at it. The African American Museum of Fine Art here in San Diego is an organization a lot of us don't know much about, and this would be a great way to learn more and make some contact. So I encourage you all to check this out. It's coming up in July. I'm sure you'll hear about it again. Is there anybody else that has something that they'd like to contribute? I also want to make, on top of what Christine said about the poetry of resilience. I'm halfway through the first workshop. It's really great. And I also want to recognize Christine Jones as being a superpower for getting the city to say, okay, on the insurance thing. That is just so huge. I can't imagine what you actually said or how many times you had to say it. But good for you, good for us, good for everybody. Thanks again for that. Anybody else? All right, well, how about this? Why don't we adjourn and have a 3-day weekend, and everybody have a good time. We'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome again, Fritz. You did a great job voting a bunch today, and we'll see you all next month. Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays.
We're adjourned. Doreen, you know why they're calling you Myron, because you're the names